What's up, people? Joe Bernstein here again. I'm back. As you know, I work with people all the time, and I just had a gem come up in my last client session, and I'm like gonna talk about it. I'm probably gonna rant about it a little bit, right? So check this out. Client I'm working with, this guy I've been working with for a couple of years. He's amazing. He's changed parts of his life so dramatically, but he's at this point in his life where he's taken on huge growth opportunities in his career. And meanwhile, he's trying to balance being a great dad who's divorced. He's trying to balance being really good to his ex-wife. Actually, he's trying to balance a relationship with someone he's now with at this point. Um, and he has a band, and he's constantly traveling for work. And so he's trying to like spin all these plates. And he realizes that part of the challenge is he's unwilling to let go. He's unwilling to say no to things. So he's constantly under stress. And he just basically said he wants to be able to do a lot of what he's doing, but with more peace. So one of the things that we talked about is just wanting to let go of these negative thoughts, wanting to actually make a shift. And he brought up Wayne Dyer was a great teacher on personal growth, on how to work with our emotions, how to work with our mind. And he actually said, Wayne Dyer used to use this metaphor of like, we have to go on a diet of the mind. If you're eating junk food, which is your negative thoughts, you have to stop believing them. You just have to stop believing them. And now I agree wholeheartedly. And then he brought up the reality that like, he wants to get rid of the thoughts. And I said, dude, you're never going to get rid of the thoughts, right? You can train your brain to think new thoughts. You can train your brain to see them less. But the reality is you have to be willing to not listen to them. And you have to practice that. And he said, yeah, I remember when I was doing Headspace, they said the same thing. The thoughts will come and go. All you have to do is observe them and let them go. Don't attach to them. So there's all these people out in the world of personal growth, of positive psychology, of Buddhism, giving you this fucking crock of shit bullshit line, which is just let go of those negative thoughts. Just let go. Right? You see that bullshit in front of you? Just let it go. And I'm calling that out. I'm calling that out as just the most lazy, passive, unrealistic way of looking at how to actually train our minds. Because maybe some people can just let it go, but I haven't met too many of them. I work with people who've been doing meditation work, who've been doing mindfulness work, who've been doing personal growth work, who've been spiritual work for years. Thank you, Phoenix Green. For years, right? And they still just can't let it go. When I'm stuck in a negative rumination about, say, my relationship, like in fact, my lady, my wonderful partner and I had a little tension this weekend. And it affected me for a couple of days. I couldn't just let it go, right? So this idea of just letting go of a negative thought is bullshit. If you've been practicing the same way of thinking, if you've been attached to these thoughts from a very young age, if you've been conditioned by the world around us, by your family, if your nervous system is designed and aligned to actually not only just create these thoughts like your brain does, your brain is an organ that creates negative thoughts. We don't have to believe in them. That's great. That's beautiful logic. But how do you actually just let go? So very often I hear people say things like, well, I'm trying to be less negative. Well, I'm trying to change the way I talk to myself. Well, I'm trying to relate differently and not take things personally with my partner, etc. And I kind of get pissed off. I'm like, what's this trying? What do you mean trying? Tell me how you're trying. Tell me how you're trying. So if we don't have practices in place, if we don't have a system or structure set up, we're probably not going to change our thinking that much. And that's just a reality. Now, it will shift over time. I guarantee you, if you start taking care of your body better, if you start reading positive things, if you stop listening to the news, if you surround yourself with positive people who aren't thinking a bunch of negative bullshit, if you take on big challenges and see that you're okay, then over time, slowly, yes, your orientation to negative thoughts, your attachment to negative thoughts will shift, will change. If you meditate for 10 years, hopefully that'll change. But it won't change at a rate that feels alive or feels powerful for you. And it won't change at a rate that'll actually impact your life today. So he brought up this idea of the mind diet. And I said, well, tell you what, man, I've lost 160 pounds. I did it without a bunch of bullshit diets. I, for many years, coached people specifically on eating psychology and mind-body nutrition. I'm well aware of what works when it comes to changing our bodies. And the traditional thinking of a diet doesn't work. When I'm working with people on their body, they want to change their relationship to food and body, I never ask them to go on a diet. In fact, I challenge them not to. What I do ask them to do is to create more consciousness and more mindfulness and awareness of what they're eating. I do ask them to think about the foods that aren't supporting them and to not necessarily boundary themselves against them, but to actually realize what you could eat instead that would be healthier or that would support their goals around their weight or body more. I like to give people lists of things I want them to start eating rather than lists of things I want them to stop eating. Right? So how do we do this with our mindset? What actually works when it comes to changing how you think and feel about yourself and the world? So I've got a few things for you. First things first, if you want to have less fear, less negative thinking, then it is actually time to work on growing boundaries with yourself. Because a lot of the time when we're scared about the way the world's going to work, and that's what overthinking and anxiety is, it's fear, it's a lack of trust of self at a deep level, we actually have to prove to ourselves that we're trustworthy. We have to prove to whatever it is. Maybe it's, you call it your inner child, maybe it's your soul or spirit, maybe it's your subconscious. I don't care what you call it. But we have to prove to those parts or part of ourselves that we're reliable, that we're trustworthy, that we're consistent, that we're boundary, that we'll take care of it. So we have to start looking at what is it that we want to start saying no to, because every no is a yes to something else, and every yes is a no to something else. So here's a couple things that you can do if you find yourself really being attached to negative thoughts rather than just letting go. Make a list of things that you find yourself saying yes to that you feel like you'd like to say no to. Make a list of everything. And next to each item, write down, what do you think would be true about yourself? What's the belief about you if you said no to this, if you didn't do this, if you didn't go to the thing, if you didn't respond in a certain amount of time? What would be the identity cost, if you will, to saying no to something? Next, practice. You're not going to get stronger by walking up to a boulder at the time it needs to be moved and thinking you can move it. If you want to be able to change your thinking in the moment, then you have to practice. It's time to practice thinking in the way that you want when it's not in the moment, right? Again, you don't just decide to show up to a marathon and run it. You would train for years sometimes, or months. You don't just decide that you can squat 400 pounds. You have to go to the gym and you have to work out and you have to have a training regimen, and you probably have to have a coach to help you out and give you practices of what you can do and helps you slowly build. So the same thing works with our mind. So if you want to go on a mind diet, here's a couple things you can do. Do the boundary thing I just talked about, but also create practices. Having a mindfulness or contemplative practice that you work on almost every day or every day, and you commit to it for a certain amount of time, is vital. If you're constantly bombarding yourself with negative thoughts, then it's time to practice putting your positive thoughts into your mind. How can you do this? You can do this with affirmations. You can do this with meditation, with mantras. You can do this by positive visualizations of your life. I use all of that. You can do it by gratitude practice. If you want to stop thinking all these negative thoughts, you want to stop attaching to them, then strengthen the muscles that help you see yourself in the way you want to. Strengthen the language inside your head that helps you transform. Strengthen the part of your brain that sees the positive. Bottom line, right? Then you can also eliminate or start to cut out negative sources of content for your brain. Cut out news that's negative. Cut out talk shows that are not positive. Cut out TV. Very little TV is actually supporting our mind and thinking the kind of thoughts that we want to think. Cut out negative music. Cut out, like, this is a thing. If someone's always thinking about like what can go wrong in the world or how violence can be acted upon them, then why are you always watching suspense thrillers and war movies, right? That's a metaphor. But clean up what comes into your mind. Treat that like it's on a diet. So what I want you to think about right now is, if you're one of these people that just tells yourself, I should be able to let go of these negative thoughts, call bullshit on yourself. I give you permission to call bullshit on yourself. Pick one practice that engages the kind of thoughts that you want to think, the kind of thoughts that you want to create a reality around. Commit to it for 30 days. Practice it even when you think it's not working, because it is. It's working on a deep level that you can't feel or see in the moment. And then see if things have changed. So just like my client today, this guy commits tons of time, energy, and money to personal growth. But I asked him, okay, so you're trying to do this or that with your thinking. How are you practicing it? He didn't have practices. So I want you to pick one practice, commit, and message me about it. That's what I got for you today. I hope this is valuable. If it is, drop a comment below, share this with someone you love. Peace.